This is the North End. This is the North End.
What up, everybody? My name is Paul Forrest. This is the North End, a Premier League fan channel. With me today is my good friend Dave Convery. Connie, we're here to talk about the rumors that broke today. That's not the right one. Let's kind of get a little bit of our heads around what's going on right now. You described to us how the day started and these new transfer windows that have broken.
Yeah, so early this morning, and I guess earlier in Europe / the UK, it's been confirmed and reported that Manchester United have agreed a fee in principle with Juventus for the purchase of Adrien Rabiot. He's a regular defensive midfielder, also a box-to-box midfielder who starts regularly for Juventus. He's also actually commonly a starter for France. So he can play the 6, he can play the 8, but what I think is so interesting about this news, and before we get into that, the fee is in the region of 15 to 20 million. The number I'm hearing is 18. Something before we get into the profile of the player is that Juventus are trying to offload this player. They don't want him, which I think should be noted. And then again, before we get into it, and I want to get your opinion on the player as well, nobody else is in for him either. So before I kind of give you my take on the player and kind of what's been spiraling today, what are your, I mean, we've been linked to this guy for 2 or 3 years now. Where are you at on Rabiot?
You know what? After the weekend's reminder that we have the easiest play to play against midfield in the Premier League.
And that's not an exaggeration. Let's pause here for a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I do not mean to interrupt you, but I think when we say that and other fans say that, they think it's sensationalism, they think it's reaction, and they think it's outrage. But it's just genuinely serious and accurate. And you just continue. I just want to call that out. It just is.
Yeah, no, this is, I mean, everybody knows it. It's without laboring into the point too much and attacking players, McFred is a terrible midfield combination that maybe was there to do a job a couple of seasons ago, and nobody really understands why we've been stuck with this for so long. I mean, you kind of know, like Paul Pogba obviously would have been the premium option in midfield, but his injury record, his fit to style, his work rate, like a lot of different variables meant that he was not really going to become the guy, whereas McTominay and Fred are both very resilient and avoid injuries for the most part and are reliable and started off doing a job. But we all know why we're looking for a new midfield player. So that's my first stance. Like coming off a Sunday, I saw this, and there's 2 things I'm going to say about this immediately, because I think what I first saw was everybody kind of reacting like the two are related. Sunday led to Monday, and this maybe not thought out transfer. I immediately want to squash that by saying transfers do not happen with a phone call on a Sunday done on Monday. This has probably been in the works for a couple of weeks. Just because we haven't heard about it doesn't mean it's not true. It's probably a good thing that we haven't heard about it. We've had way too many leaks. This entire summer has been different for us because there haven't been a lot of leaks. And I think that means that we're not used to it, and we're not used to this idea of things happening in a secretive little vacuum. That's how it should be. That's how good business should be conducted. So let's assume that this guy's been in the works for at least a couple of weeks, and let's not connect Sunday to Monday. In that case, what I like about this is that he is definitely an upgrade on both our midfield options. He is well-traveled. He is classy. He's a French international. But mostly what I'm excited about is he's an actual midfield player.
Yeah.
He can shield the ball. He can take the ball off of defense. He can move it forward. He's pretty good in a tackle. He's an all-arounder. He can pass very well. He's an upgrade to both our options. And for that reason, I like it a lot. We don't know what the price is for this guy yet, but what I do think is going to happen is that we're going to find out we got him for pennies on the dollar. I think he's going to be a less than 20 million purchase, which I love because we need to start getting deals in as well as big monster signings. If we're still in for De Jong as an example, and we can supplement that purchase with this purchase, all of a sudden we have a new starting midfield, and we are so much better than we were at the start of the season. So I like this transfer for a lot of different reasons. I don't think you're going to get a guy for a low price unless there's a situation like he's in where he's got one more year in his contract. He's probably said he doesn't want to re-sign. Juventus are restacking their cards quite a bit. Pogba going to Juventus probably means that he's not necessarily in the plans for Juventus. There's a lot of press around this guy. He comes with some baggage. I don't know how real the baggage is, but he is kind of the punching bag for Italian press for the last couple of seasons.
Should we get
which
into
is kind of weird because if you look into it, like the Italian press, he plays a lot for Juventus, and Juventus have been underperforming for a few seasons. They put a lot of it at his feet.
He takes a lot of blame. If you look at his player ratings last season, they're not like I've been reading a lot about him this morning, and I read Juventus fan Sensible seemed like he said he's flexible. He can play in the 6. He can play in the 8. He says, and his physique is this guy follows United as well. He goes, his physique is his best attribute. Now I think you mentioned it earlier in the video. He can shield the ball, which is that connector piece, taking the ball from defense and moving it forward. He did, however, make a comment saying on the ball, he's not that much better than Fred. And I've been reading up on him, watching him a little bit. Yeah, I do see him a little bit loose in possession, which I think next to someone being strong, like we had with Matic, we do need somebody tidier. I do think, and then before we get more into the player, the baggage thing seems to be this comment around the fact that his mom is his agent and his mom is a lot to deal with. He's on $9 million a year at Juventus, and I think with Pogba coming in, like you mentioned earlier, he's going to be on a bigger wage, and I think it's more for Juventus. I mean, they're tightly run club financially. Offloading that salary, I think, is important to Juventus to say.
Juventus and every Italian club need to make money somehow.
Exactly.
But also, I mean, make money somehow means when a guy's not going to re-sign for you next season and he's in the last year of his contract, you sell him for whatever you can get, especially now that you brought in. Paul Pogba came in with a huge salary, but there was no fee to United to get him. So this is, get as much as you can for him. And he also controls who he goes to. So there probably is a fairly limited amount of teams that A, need him, but B, can also pay his salary. So I have no problem with him going to United. And you mentioned the mom as the agent. I find that really interesting because how many parents and family members are the agent of players? But everybody I've read has made a point of saying, and his mom is his agent.
I know.
It's some sort of weird indictment of him, or he's a mama's boy, or I don't know what their point is they're making, but I don't read about so-and-so's brother is his agent as being maybe you find out about it, but not every and his mom is his agent is how they always word it. It's kind of what's the issue here?
Apparently it's not necessarily that his mom's. So apparently at PSG, his mom caused quite a stink. His mom, the agent, and again, they're the same, apparently caused quite a stink. And he apparently was trouble in the change room causing. But from what I've read, and I've been reading up a lot, apparently he was fine in the dressing room at Juventus, wasn't a problem, had a great attitude, great work ethic, great application. I'm like you, Paul. I don't have an issue with the transfer. I think it's better than what we have. And I think United need to start going out and finding these more quality players that have 1 year left on their deal. Now, my question to you is, and this seems to be the outrage amongst United fans, is it, and again, I'm just strictly going on the United fan base online today. People don't rate Rabiot. People think he's not good enough. He won't be able to do the job. So maybe my question to you is this. Maybe he's better than what we have, but is he the answer if he's the only midfielder we get in between now and the end of the season?
No, we have to build a midfield, but this, people are reacting like the one piece of business you do first is the only piece of business you're going to do. We signed a left back that nobody had heard of. Oh, he's never going to help us win the league. Just one, but like we never just bought one player. So why are we acting like Rabiot is going to be the only midfield player we bring in? Like if that is the case, yeah, we've got some trouble. Honestly,
Well,
yes.
we can
but
mention
we
it
also
very
know
quickly.
we're heavily linked with De Jong still. So why would we think he's the end of it?
Reported in the last 10 minutes, and we won't get into it, but should be noted that we are also linked with Guido Rodriguez from Real Betis. We're looking at him, as well as Everton are also looking at him. So what I've been led to believe from what I've read.
Thank you, Roller, by the way, for giving us that comment. We appreciate the heads up on that.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Yeah, and apparently this guy's an actual CDM, which is great. So from what I understand, after the game yesterday, John Murtaugh, Eric Ten Hag, and the Glazers had a behind closed doors meeting at Trafford, long after the game. I have to imagine there were conversations about recruitment, specifically the area of midfield. And I think you nailed it earlier. It's not like our recruitment team isn't having conversations with multiple teams about multiple players. Doesn't mean we're buying those players, but it doesn't mean that we're not talking to people. I think the sensationalism by fans, and again, you got to remember, we're just a little bit more over 24 hours after what was a horrific performance, and with everything that's going on with the club, I mean, to an expectation, you can understand why people are going nuts right now. But I mean, listen, the game was the game, but it is very clear. Listen, we didn't play well in multiple areas of the pitch, but I think it's fair to say we don't have a midfielder right now. Like Scott McTominay is a mid to bottom level Premier League midfielder at best. Fred, we've watched now. Like I actually saw something on Twitter today, Paul. He's been here for 5 years. 5 years Fred's been here.
If I find myself stuck into another conversation where we're talking about why we need to have a midfield player, I just think we should all just be like, it's well-trodden ground. It's the biggest known thing about any team in the transfer market. Yeah, it's like, why are we justifying the need for bringing this guy in? As a reaction to this guy, good price, been around the block, you kind of know what his strengths are, you know what his weaknesses are, very well-established profile. He's a French international, which is nice. Does he bring in height? Yes. Do I think we need height because Martinez is a 5'10" at center back? Yes. Is he class on the ball? Yes. Was he being selected at Juventus more than Bentancur, who went to Spurs and did a very good job at Spurs? Yes. Is that promising for us? I think it should be. I think we should be looking at this as being a exciting, opportunistic signing. There's negativity around United.
Oh, Paul, you're muted.
Yeah, I hit you because, like I said, waving my hands around. I just think we should be excited for this guy. Why not be excited for this guy?
I am.
Would we be excited if he's the only signing we make? Yeah, fair, different story. But let's not even bring that notion into the reaction for this. Let's be optimistic about this. The guy is class.
Yeah,
like he is probably what we need right now in a rebuilding session, anyways. In that it's an opportunity for him. It's an opportunity for us. He's not going to cost us tens and tens of millions of our transfer budget to bring him in, and he's relatively young. Like, where's the downside of this?
Again, from a lot of credible people that I follow on Twitter whose opinions I like, I mentioned in our group chat this morning, I like the idea of this signing a lot, and I think you and I have had personal conversations. I was big on Rabiot a couple of years. When PSG moved him to Juventus, I was a little bit pissed off. Even when he went to PSG, I was always big on Rabiot. I loved watching him, particularly for France. And then when I would see him at PSG for club football, I thought he was a great six, kind of like in that ilk of Frankie, where he wants the ball, he's moving the ball like quick. So the only question I have around this signing is, and again, maybe I'm buying into the craziness in the last 24 hours. The one thing I want, if we were going to sign Rabiot, is it to be a player that Ten Hag wants. You made the comment earlier. People trying to justify the midfield, I don't want to have that conversation anymore. And when it comes to Ten Hag, everyone knows he has a style. It's not like, oh, how is Rabiot going to fit? What's he going to do? He has a way he wants to play. Everyone watched him at Ajax. Everyone knows how he manages and what kind of football team he wants. I want the manager to want this player, and I have to think if we're going in for him, given what we learned about, Ten Hag getting to United, that he wants this player as well, or he's at least on a list of players that he's interested in. Do I think he improves our midfield immediately? Absolutely. Is it maybe a scenario where it's a stopgap where Rabiot is the answer now just to get Fred and McTominay away from the midfield? We watched yesterday and not enough people are talking about it. Eriksen played in an 8 yesterday and was easily United's best player. Easily. He was fantastic. When we did progress the ball forward from deeper midfield positions, it was him. So how about a pivot with Rabiot and Eriksen, and Bruno will get it together with potentially another midfielder coming in. And really, and I don't want to get too worked up about it, anything to not see Scott and Fred near the midfield. If those two are starting over James Gardner next week, I'm going to be nothing short of livid. And I mean livid.
You've been warned, Eric Ten Hag. You've been warned.
Livid.
Dave Convery will be livid.
You don't want to put up with that.
I want to circle back to your point. I see no reason why we should constantly be suggesting that manager is not getting the players he wants, or that this is being an enforced transfer. Everything about this window is suggested that we've been going after guys that are clearly Eric Ten Hag targets or players that he's comfortable getting. I don't know why we suddenly start suggesting that this is a Glazers purchase or he doesn't want Rabiot. Rabiot's profile as a player is very similar to Gravenberch, who was the Dutch player that played at Ajax in the midfield last year for Ajax and Eric Ten Hag and went to Bayern Munich. Like, this is a kind of player that is usually in, or at least last season, in the heart of midfield for an Eric Ten Hag team. So why are we bringing up this notion that all of a sudden, because he's an established pseudo household name, French international, may have corporate appeal? Yeah, that might be true, but he's also probably exactly the kind of player that was on a short list that Eric Ten Hag has proof of. And then people will talk about these closed door sessions that happened on Sunday. Well, fuck, the Glazers were in Manchester. That doesn't happen very often. That was always going to happen. They were always going to have a meeting regardless of the score. And they were always going to talk about transfer business on top of a bunch of other stuff. It's unrelated. It's not a panic buy. It's not a rush out. I just get very annoyed when people suggest that what happened on Sunday had anything to do with happened today on Monday. Like, appreciate that it takes 2 to 3 weeks to deal with a lawyer to buy a house. Imagine buying a player. Like, the legalities and the contracts and the medicals and the back and forth and the negotiations could take up to 2 months easily. So why is anybody suggesting that, oh, we lost to Brighton on a Sunday, oh, then we got Rabiot on a Monday? Like, they're not related. It's dumb.
Yeah. He's taken a lot of abuse. He's 27 years old, which I'm happy about. He's not 33. He's not 34. Like this, I mean, they say in football your prime is between 25 and 27. Like, the guys.
No, I mean, it's great. Like, let's look at his stats right now. Like, this is something very interesting. It was evident from Fred and McTominay they're not press resistant. They cannot get themselves out of the press. Fred's got tiny little legs, and he's good with the ball at his feet upfield, but facing our keeper and getting the ball at his feet and turning or doing anything with it, he's terrible at. And he cannot dribble his way out of a press, and the press is constant in the Premier League.
It's the Premier League.
Coincidentally, our top 2 targets, De Jong, who we may still be able to get, #1 dribble success rate in Europe, and Adrien Rabiot, who we've just apparently brought over the line, who is the 4th best at dribbling in a midfield position in the world, in Europe. Like, that's great. Because, again, we don't necessarily think that De Jong is not on the table anymore. In fact, that everything I'm hearing out of Barcelona right now makes it more likely that he's going to want to get out of there or be pushed out if they're going to claim that his contract is illegal and not legally binding anymore. Like, he doesn't want to be there. Nobody wants to be at a club that's doing that to you. Like, he's not saying it. There's reasons why he's not saying it. But, like, he wants it. Whether he goes to United or somebody else, I don't know. But I honestly think, like, we could be looking at, in a month's time, a double pivot of Rabiot and De Jong, and I think that's a great transfer window.
Oh,
like, that's
I would agree.
Massive upgrade on our midfield, and our midfield has been one of our biggest issues. And people will say the defense is an issue, but you cannot tell me that the lack of control in the midfield that we saw against Brighton didn't give our defense any opportunity to actually shine as a defense. You can't be a great defense and not have a good midfield in front of you, either working extremely hard and killing everything and snuffing everything out, which some Premier League midfields can do, or bringing in an element of control and shielding your defense by making sure your team has the ball for most of the game in successful ways, and then not giving it away in silly counter-attacking positions, which is what McTominay and Fred tend to always do. So I don't know. I look at this and I think this is the start of something, and I like this signing. Is he going to set the world on fire? No. Is he going to be the Premier League Player of the Year? No. Ballon d'Or? No. Is it a good value signing that fits what we're building right now? I don't see any reason why we can't just all enthusiastically say yes.
And
if this is all we bring in, and if this is all we bring in this summer, problem. But we're not there to know that yet or not. So why make it a problem until it becomes a problem? We're going to find out in a month.
No, I agree. And again, I know you weren't big on him, but like when Matic played last season, I know he struggled to play 90 minutes, and that was just because of his age in the Premier League. He could shield the ball. He was a connector from midfield to attack, and that's when we had some of our better games. And I really, and again, I think we talked about this yesterday. I mentioned in my 5 things, I really hope, and in one small way, I was kind of happy about the loss in a sense where I really hope it was just a massive eye-opener for Ten Hag to be like, you know what? We cannot operate with these two in midfield. And I think it was that, but you nailed it. Rabiot is a good signing for a good price. So just to be clear to everybody, we've agreed personal terms with Juventus. That's done. Apparently now it's agreeing personal terms with his agent. And again, I don't know why we need to throw in that it's his mom. I'm even doing it as well.
We do not. We don't.
What do you mean? Has it been agreed?
No, I thought you were
going to mention no, you're right. Yeah, I know. I wasn't even I don't even know why I did it. So we just need to agree personal terms with his agent. He is on 9 million a year euros at Juventus. So I think that's the last piece of the puzzle. Let's be clear here. This deal is going to happen, and you're right. I agree with you. We're on the same page. This is a good piece of business for United, a much needed transfer. Again, one of hopefully 2 or 3 more which are required. Something to quickly discuss. We're also being linked with Marko Arnautovic, apparently very closely. I don't know if Manchester United's PR team has looked into his racism background, which is pretty well documented. So if we did do that piece of business, I would be utterly shocked and absolutely partially outraged. And then again, like I said, we're being linked to this other Real Betis midfielder.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
We're talking about stuff that was said 10 to 12 years ago.
It always comes back, though.
But, like, I mean...
I don't know. I mean, we're a huge...
Like, if he comes forward now...
We're a massive club. PR matters. He would have to. He would have to come forward and say, you know what?
I'm not asking. I'm going to finish my question because I haven't actually finished my question. Okay. I don't like it when you assume where I'm going because all of a sudden you're talking about the club being massive and stuff. I'm asking you. A guy says some shit 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Not the first person to get caught in saying some stupid, ignorant stuff. Has had 12 years of what you can probably hope is some level of growth and like personal refinement. Does his attitudes recently and his actions recently, aren't those more important than what he might have said 12 years ago? And I don't act like I've always kind of thought he was a dirtbag, but now that I've kind of looked at him and gone, well, you know, he's been around the block. I don't really know what he's been up to lately. He's been relatively drama-free. He wanted to get out of West Ham, but that was an ambition thing, not you're a scumbag thing. So yeah, I don't know.
I think he's had
how I feel about
incidents. That. I don't know. Is his last bad incident 12 years ago? Because from what I've seen, I think it's more recent than that, and it's not just 1 or 2.
But shouldn't we know before we bring it up with people? Shouldn't we Shouldn't we know?
True. Well, I would
say is this the kind of bad stink that just follows you and without anybody digging into it and saying, well, what is it he said exactly? When did he say it? What did he say in response to saying it? What has he done since then? This is a little bit. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like Kevin Hart at the Oscars.
Totally.
He said what he said. He tweeted what he tweeted. But that doesn't mean that's who he
Well,
is now.
let's refer what you're talking. You're referring to cancel culture, right? So I think you're right. I don't
I'm
know
not
what
even necessarily
Arnautovic
referring to cancel culture as much
kind
as
of are.
the lazy acceptance of we all just kind of accept what we've been told that's a negative about this player without actually doing the work of going, well, what do you mean? I mean, specifically, what did he do?
I read an
No,
okay,
no.
so he referred to a player on the field, an African American player, as a extremely derogatory term. That's one. He's made racial slurs during football matches towards Albanians. This guy's got a lot of red flags around him. Again, I don't know if he's denounced any of these actions. I don't know if he's changed his tune on any of this. Because I agree with you. Everyone has a past. Can you, start refreshed? And do you have the opportunity to put your hand up and say, you know what? I was a different person. I was in the wrong. I've learned a lot. I don't know if he's done that. I'm just saying with Manchester United, the size of club that they are globally, and they are a company. Let's not forget, as much as they are a football team, they're a global operation. That stuff needs to be taken into consideration. That's number one. Number two, this is a guy who's been banging in goals in the Chinese Super League, and I know he did the business in Serie A, but is this the guy that we want? Is this the forward we want? Let's get into the football aspect.
Number one, I find it interesting that people kind of automatically go to his past again without knowing what he is now. Like that, I've just been seeing a lot of that, just like a lot of,
yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and I truthfully don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I'll probably look into it a bit before I make up my mind. I'm not going to bother yet because I'm not really sure how like concrete this actually is. So just from a football perspective, one, I think a lot of people are talking a lot of shit because it's assumed that he's the replacement for Cristiano Ronaldo. I do not think that's the case. I think the entire summer we've been looking for an Edison Cavani style player who is a rotational player.
Exactly.
Because we don't know if Ronaldo's going or staying or what the deal is. So the notion that he's there to replace Ronaldo, I think, is misguided and not true. Because he's not coming in to be the main man. He's coming in to be an option for a team that has very little options. We should have 3 strikers in our squad. He would be the deepest of the 3 if Ronaldo stays. And then if Ronaldo goes, we don't know who we bring in, if it's going to be a young gun or we just don't know. So I don't automatically frown on the suggestion that bringing in an older, established goal scorer is a flawed approach, particularly if we're going to be playing in Europa this year. Because this guy in the Europa could bang in goals, and winning the Europa might be our best route to getting into the Champions League next year, because it's going to be a very competitive top 4 in the Premier League. So does he give us something that we don't currently have in our squad? Yes. He's a big body, hold up play 9 who's very capable of scoring goals. He's very good.
He's
not great.
He's a skill.
He's very good.
He's a very skilled and talented player. When he's on his game, he's elite. There's no deny. I remember watching him, and he's a force to deal with. And let's be very clear here. He's something we don't currently have right now. Nothing anywhere near it. He would be a great addition in that sense. I'd be happy. And
that game against Brighton. Imagine having Arnautovic as an option to bring off the bench against Brighton.
100%. Even someone to
the
put
last
balls
20
into
minutes
in
of the game.
box. He's great in the air. But I think you nailed it, though, too. Like, we're going to be playing a lot of games, regardless of what happens. Let's say we keep Ronaldo. Ronaldo's 38, and I don't want to be presumptuous. I have a strong feeling he has zero interest in playing one game in the, what do you call it, their Europa Cup. Like, not one. I think he's like, I'm Mr. Champions League. If I'm staying, I'm not going near that competition. It's beneath me. That's his ego. I have a feeling that might be the case. This guy would be a great buy. I have no problems with the purchase. I do worry about the off the field stuff, but listen, that's a United situation. They're going to need to manage that. I know there's a lot of PR around it, but it'd be a good.
You should worry about it. We just should all be open to like looking into it more than what sensationalistic tweets are saying about the guy. Like,
exactly.
There's just a little bit of diligence required before we like say, well, for reasons related to his personality or his beliefs or his behavior in the past, we don't want him. Then that's fine if that's your conclusion, but also do a little bit of work to find out what that actually was and get a sense of it yourself before you just kind of accept that nah, he's shady. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of people going off about this guy. Like Twitter in the last 24 hours, if you follow Manchester United and you're a Manchester, has been absolute chaos. Like
Yeah.
it's outrageous. But
Well,
again,
so much of it is the sensationalist reaction to
knee jerk.
somehow he's a replacement to Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, he's
Like
not.
he's not. He's a
Not
very
even a replacement to
attainable,
Martial.
cheap process that gives us options off the bench and gives us rotation
Yeah,
and can score Premier League goals. Like it
squad depth.
there was a time where people would have called Henrik Larsson a panic buy in January. You know what I mean? Like well
It's
past
Henrik
his
Larsson.
prime.
Yeah,
Huh? Like
it's Henrik Larsson. He scores goals. He's a good player. He was a great purchase.
yeah, like it's not. This isn't new. Man United have done this a lot throughout the existence of Man United. Big clubs can do this. It's worry if this is all you bring in. If all you bring in is Falcao, if all you bring in is Cavani, if all you bring in is Ronaldo, that's a worry. If you're bringing in an older guy and you have other options, or you are bringing in other options, it is not inherently the same pattern behavior as before, but maybe worse because he's just not as good as Falcao or Cavani or Ronaldo.
But look at the
No.
culmination of it, right? So you have a pretty slow window with Eriksson, Malacia, and Martinez linked to De Jong all summer. Opening weekend of the season, you lose 2-1 to Brighton and not a good scene. And then you're linked to Rabiot, who's, again, he's 27. He's not old. He's not young. And Arnautovic. And you could see the culmination of this boiling for the fans to just go off the deep end, right? Just given like
Right.
all of these things. But again, it's weird. It's this knee jerk, insane reaction to these things. I'd be fine with both of these signings. There's always the caveat to as long as they're not the only ones coming in the door, because we need, I don't want to say a big name, but we need a Frankie De Jong type sign.
Yeah.
Like even Paul, if it was Ruben Neves, or it was, I don't even know who's left, somebody of that ilk, or somebody who could step in, and you could look at me and we could look at each other, and the fan base could say, man, this guy's a starter. He improves our team dramatically. We need one of those literally in midfield, and then some sort of attacking signing if it's Arnautovic or somebody else. But a piece of business like Rabiot or like Arnautovic, if everything was clear on the other side and it was on the up and up, good business. I don't know why everyone's losing their mind. Like these guys go right into the starting 11, and like you don't need squad depth. Spurs paid 50 million for Richarlison. I know he's suspended, but he's probably not going to start most games for Spurs. But you need players to come off the bench and do a job. Both of these guys are that. Rabiot is probably a starter. He is a starter in our current situation right now. I think everyone needs to chill.
I would like it if they did.
They won't. They won't. I can
Rome
promise
wasn't built in a day. All kinds of analogies. Like
you. Yep.
just sit back and wait until the entire transfer window is concluded, and then draw your statements and conclusions. And yeah, maybe there are players that come in that you're just like, fuck this guy. Like Arnautovic, like I don't mind if somebody decides, no, I don't want this guy in my club. I don't. I have no problem if you conclude that you don't want him here because of what he's done before, or the kind of person he is. I just want people to be able to tell me exactly what he's done and what kind of person they think that he is, because too often I'm just hearing, well, I heard that he had done this before, and like they're not. It's clear they're just kind of like reading a tweet about him being shady, and that's the end of their assessment. And there have to be better options than him as well. I think he's an opportunistic signing, but Rabiot is like, does he make us better? Immediately he does.
Yes, he starts on Saturday. If he was here, he would.
Yeah, it's just,
and that's kind of where I want to finish. I know we've talked a lot about this, but I do want to ask you one question. And again, getting ahead of ourselves, but we play on Saturday. We play Brentford on Saturday. For us, it's the late game, the 5:00 game in the UK. What do you see happening quickly with regards to the lineup from what you've seen yesterday, and just your own general opinion with, what do you see for that starting lineup that you think he will put out there?
Well, I think we learned that the false nine doesn't work.
Does
I
not.
think Cristiano Ronaldo starts.
Agreed.
Maybe doesn't play more than 60 minutes, but I'd rather have him start so we have at least one half of playing with a striker than having to play with a false nine. Because again, I thought that was just really problematic. It
Yeah.
wasn't the main
I like that
issue,
he tried it.
obviously.
I like that he tried it though. I was
Yeah, yeah,
interested in that. Remember I asked you like a week ago, I'm like, what about the false
yeah.
nine? I had no problem with it.
It's a good to go. Scott McTominay and Fred get broken up. Um, it's either bringing Ericsson back to play with one of them. I don't know which of those two I would be more comfortable with, or it is dropping one of them to bring in Garner, who I think deserves a chance. But he's a young guy. It's hard to say if he's ready. I'll trust the coach and the managers to like determine if he's in a position to where he could slide in there. It would be a lot of pressure for him to come in and perform based on how shit the guys that played last week were. I don't know if he needs to be kind of
The scapegoat.
thrown into the fire like that. Like we need you to be the one to fix this.
That's football, man.
It is football, but I don't expect to see major changes. I think one of Fred or McTominay still starts. I think one of them does get dropped for either Ericsson coming back and playing deeper or Garner coming in. From what I saw last week, I don't. It's going to be an ongoing debate throughout the season whether Bruno or Ericsson are more important to have on the field. At some point, we're going to have to decide that, because if Rabiot is available, Rabiot plays with, say, Fred as the double pivot, right, tomorrow. Like if he's available, right? He's not, but let's say that. So that means
Gives you
the
same
position
problems in the double pivot,
the position
giving
behind the
ball
striker
away.
is either Bruno or Ericsson. And as of right now, I think Ericsson would do a better job
I agree.
and have more control and impact on the game than Bruno. Not that Bruno played all that badly. Again, he was playing out of position a lot of that game, but that's going to be the debate, and that's good. That's a good problem to have, honestly. If having competition for Bruno and having options for when Bruno's form isn't great, it's a good problem to have. I think Sancho still starts. I think Rashford still starts. The problem for the game that we saw on Sunday is that our attackers weren't getting the ball when they should be getting the ball.
Agreed, but we had chances and we missed them. Bruno missed a great chance. Rashford missed a great chance. And just to quickly touch on your point about Bruno.
But we're not replacing those players with anybody more
No.
clinical than them because we don't have anyone.
I don't want to go on my Garnacho rant, but I will. At a month into the season, I'm going to start, but I'm going to hold off for now. You make a great point about Bruno and Ericsson and what I think the key difference is, and I don't think that anyone's kind of keyed in on it yet, and it's not with the ball, because they're both great with the ball. It's off the ball. Ericsson is hungrier for the ball, will move for it more, and he actually just covers better and he scans better than Bruno does from a full game perspective. Not just Bruno's a full-blown offensive player, and when I see him almost trying to press or trying to come back and play position, it's like he has no idea what he's doing, whereas Ericsson is very comfortable in the middle of the park, coming and showing for the ball and distributing from deeper, whereas it's not Bruno's thing. He can do it. Bruno likes, like, say what you will, a roaming false nine type midfielder, an attacking midfielder. It's who he is, and with the right setup, and we've seen it under Ole a couple of seasons ago, he thrives. That's not how Erik ten Hag manages teams. It's not the way it's going to work. To your point, if we keep going down this road, that will be Ericsson's position should he stay fit and healthy. The question remains, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, who the fuck is going to play behind him? And if we get the Rabiot deal over the line, I think it's a huge upgrade on what we have. But if Ericsson's going to play higher up, we can't just have Rabiot. But again, we know the market is open. But I think we need more than Rabiot, and I think we agree on that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I am excited for Brentford, more so just to see what, more than anything, this is a big week of training for Manchester United. They have a lot of things to fix.
How do they react to this is how we're going to learn about Erik ten Hag being able to get his team to react.
Yeah.
Was I surprised we lost the first game of the season? I actually wasn't.
Me neither.
I see this how the opening lineup. I was like, oh yeah, I guess we're not really ready to start the season. Like we're
Same
not
team.
really ready to start, are we? No. All right.
Did you catch it? Eric Ten Hag actually basically admitted that he got his tactics wrong. He said, he goes, Brighton typically is a team that plays out from the back. He goes, they didn't today. He goes, they played the long ball. So he basically admitted in the first half he set up his team completely irrespective to how Brighton actually played. And he goes, if you look in the second half, we adjusted, we had the ball.
No,
So
hang on. Well,
he did say that.
I just think you misframed it. He set up the team for how Brighton play
Correct.
traditionally. Okay.
Traditionally.
He's not a mind. He's not a genie who's going to know the future. Okay.
No.
So he did the smart thing. He did the informed thing. They just threw him a curveball.
I like that he admitted. I like his transparency in a sense. Like he basically said, we planned for them to play up for the back, and they didn't. They played long ball, which does kind of make that first 45 make a little bit more sense because then the adjustments were made in the second half. We did have more of the ball. I thought we should have and could have been more incisive, but I mean, the damage was done at that point. We got the goal. We arguably should have scored more. But
we didn't bring the ball out from the back with purpose. They immediately isolated Martinez and Delo. So then they gave freedom of the pitch to Harry Maguire, who did okay with the ball, but it wasn't like the guy. You can't criticize the starting back, which is the start of the transition from when you play the ball out from the back, for not being able to get the ball to the midfield players if the midfield players are not doing their job by moving around or getting open, or when they do get the ball, you immediately lose confidence in them because without looking, Fred, he just kicks the ball straight into the path of a Brighton player.
Oh, that was wild.
Yeah, like it's a not even tactics anymore. It's a personnel thing. It's like we don't have midfield, so that affects the way the defense looks.
Having said
it's cause and effect all the way across the board. Like even our attackers are affected by how we can't play the ball out of the back because the midfield just are fucking not good enough. David De Gea had much higher passing percentage than Scott McTominay.
He made 8 passes. 18 passes for, I think, I want to say 63%. He had a nightmare of a game. But again, you can't sign a world-class player like Raphael Varane, and if he's fit, not play him. I'd be shocked to not see him in the starting lineup next week. We'll see. It's week 1. It's the same team. We are gonna
end
the window's open.
We're gonna end it now. Everybody out there, my man Connie does a 5 things. He summarized his thoughts on the game. We are going to be having our regular show, which we talk about the entire Premier League week tomorrow with the rest of the crew. Yep. So I'm sure we're going to get into it a little bit later tomorrow because obviously we're going to get the gears given to us because we're United fans and fucking can't lose to Brighton without getting some gears thrown your way. But I'm going to ask a real quick question. I just want a definitive yes or no. We have been on different sides of this Scott McTominay discussion. I'm very clear that he's not Premier League good enough, and I have been for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. I can accept squad, but you think he's got more to it than what I thought. Are you finally now realizing that he's just not a Premier League midfield player?
Yeah, I don't want him anywhere near the team. I thought for a couple of seasons now, Scott was slowly developing into that actual 6 role. I never had a lot of faith in Scott being like an 8 or anywhere moving forward, even though that's where he says he's. I thought that he was fast, quick, and strong enough to be that, in Ten Hag's words, the connector, get the ball, shield the ball, move the ball, and speed up tempo. Because we have seen little bits of it. He's nowhere near good enough. He can't dribble with the ball. He can't collect the ball. His passing is garbage. I don't think, and I said this to you earlier today, if both McTominay and Fred are in the squad to start the following campaign, to start 23-24, I'm going to be just shocked. But no, he's nowhere near good enough.
Okay.
I don't.
So would you say that I was right? Would you say I was right?
Absolutely. Without question, you were correct. I was in la la land when it came to what I thought Scott could be and would be. He was the worst player in the field. And in all honesty, he was probably United's worst player in preseason, which, again, preseason apparently didn't mean much. But Paul was right and I was wrong. But I just hope he does not play next week. But I could see him playing instead of Fred.
You could read the
next week.
screen too if you want. If you wanted to, like,
I
do
saw
a,
it already. Okay, he's not
full
always
quote.
right. I'm usually
Always.
more accurate than Paul. Everyone knows that. But
no,
yeah, I
no,
am. We know
no.
that. Let's not get.
Ladies and
You're
gentlemen,
right
we have
about
been the
this.
North End Podcast / YouTube channel. This has been a discussion about transfer reaction to Rabiot and some guy with Arnautovic as a last name, who may or may not be a complete scumbag. We don't know for sure, but he probably is, if we're all honest. That's it, folks. Catch us tomorrow with the rest of the Premier League team when we do our regular roundtable with some other guys who are not just United fans, and we cover all the Premier League action on the weekend. I'm Paul. That's Dave. Peace.
Peace.
This is the North End. This is the North End.